The fact that a restaurant that only does chicken strips has been rapidly expanding all over the United States and even into the Middle East is rather mind-boggling. You may also wonder that how did the person who came up with this multi-million-dollar business get started when he had no money and no funding? This is the crazy underdog success story of raising canes. After working in a variety of restaurants through high school and college, Todd Graves had always had a dream of starting his own restaurant, and whilst he was at university, he was asked to come up with a business plan as a requirement to his course. Todd was ecstatic about this because it gave him the chance to properly plan out his restaurant idea and have it evaluated by a professor. Todd teamed up with his best friend Craig for the project and explained his idea. What if they created a restaurant that only did one thing, but did it the best? They could keep costs down by having the menu be as simple as possible, focusing on one easy dish, so there were no errors and it was always perfect. Craig liked the idea as well, and they decided chicken strips would be the perfect product to go for. Todd envisioned a place where people could come in, listen to good music, and eat good chicken. A place where the workers enjoyed coming to work and genuinely cared about the business and wanted it to succeed. The dream was there, and after Todd and Craig spent many long days planning and writing out their model and pricing up exactly what they would need, they excitedly turned in their final project to their professor. They'd worked so hard on it and were sure they'd get an A. However, when they got the paper back, they'd got the lowest marks in the whole class. They were crushed, and Todd wanted answers. After class, he confronted the professor and asked what was wrong with the idea to give it the lowest mark out of everyone. The professor said the idea was just too simple. There was no way that a restaurant only serving one dish would be able to make it, especially when they'd chosen chicken fingers, which wasn't very unique and had big competitors like KFC and Popeyes, who also offered other dishes as well. But this didn't deter Todd. He began to go to various banks, hoping to be able to take out a loan so he could get the funding required. However, every bank gave him the same response his professor had. It was a bad idea, wasn't innovative enough, etc., etc. However, Todd didn't lose any determination, and after a while, he was able to get a job as a boiler maker in Southern California. The pay was good enough, so without a second thought, Todd packed up his things and moved halfway across the country. As a boiler maker, Todd's job was to go around California and repair steam boilers, boiler furnaces, and boiler frames. The job was hard, and the hours long, as he worked about 90 hours a week, but Todd was saving money for his dream. So after working as a boiler maker for a while, Todd found out about commercial salmon fishing in Alaska. The pay was amazing, but the job was incredibly dangerous and would require him to go way out onto the cold Pacific Ocean to get the sockeye salmon they were looking for. He thought about it for some time, weighing his options, but at the end of the day, the pay was really good. And what's a dream if you're not willing to risk something for it? So after moving to the dry, scorching heat of Southern California, Todd was now moving to the freezing lands of Alaska so he could work as a commercial fisherman. Between the ice-cold, salty water drenching him all hours of the day, the horribly chilling wind, and the 20-hour work days that were spent out in the ocean, Ted was out of his element. However, any resentment he felt towards the job evaporated when he saw that first paycheck. Alaska's commercial salmon fishing industry makes an average profit of $230 million a year, and although the work is brutal, they compensate their employees well. Todd could see his dream, which had once been on the distant horizon, suddenly jump much closer to him. He knew he just had to stick with the Alaska job a bit longer, and thus, he continued to endure the harsh conditions. To save up the majority of his paychecks, Todd finally saved up enough money to move back to his home city and start his first restaurant. His dream was about to become a reality. He bought a long-since deserted bakery which had become a warehouse outside of Louisiana State University, figuring college students would love chicken fingers. The place was in shambles and had been deserted for ages. So Todd had his work cut out for him and decided he would simply do the renovations himself. Luckily for Todd, he had good friends who all agreed to help him build his restaurant. Craig, who was still in Louisiana, came out and helped him in this endeavor. They spent long days at the warehouse, tearing down walls and putting up new ones, ripping up floorboards, and installing all the necessary equipment for a restaurant to run, quite literally building Raising Cane's by hand from the ground up. Since moving back home, Todd had gotten a lovable golden retriever, which he had named Raising Cane, as a play on words of the old saying, to raise Cain, which means to cause a ruckus. One of Todd's friends suggested just naming the restaurant after the dog. Todd loved the idea and even took it a step further. What if he didn't just name the restaurant after his beloved dog, but he made the dog the face of it? Raising Cane could be the mascot as well as the namesake. As he thought about it more, it just felt right. He was excited. And thus, his restaurant became known as Raising Cane's. They were finally ready for business. After much hard work and effort, the first Raising Cane's opened in 1996. When Todd was just 24, on their first day of opening, the community came out in a big way to show their support. The restaurant was packed all day, and more people were constantly spilling in to get chicken fingers. They had opened their doors that morning, but with how busy it was, weren't able to close till 3:30 a.m. After that first day, where Todd worked in any position he could, from fry cook to cashier to manager, he took stock of his restaurant. As planned, Todd had focused on just having one thing on his menu, one thing that he did the best, and that was the chicken fingers. He'd searched out the highest quality chicken for his chicken fingers, and then spent countless hours perfecting a secret sauce to go with them. For sides, he incorporated coleslaw, crinkle-cut fries, and Texas toast. He was very kind to his staff as well. Staff were allowed to wear jeans and t-shirts if they wanted to, and could play any music they felt like in the store. Todd also believed that putting the employees' well-being first would make the staff generally more joyful, which would mean better customer service, and he wasn't wrong. Reviews started pouring in talking about the kindness of the people who worked there. Everything was finally coming together. In Raising Cane's first month of being open, they had a profit of $30. Whilst that's not much at all, Todd was over the moon about it. That meant that he was able to pay the mortgage on the building, all his bills for the restaurant, and his employees' wages, and still have a very small amount of money left over. Most importantly, it showed this business model could actually work. By 2001, Raising Cane's was using the slogan "One Love" to express their love for chicken fingers, and the fact they focused on just that one product. By 2005, they officially trademarked it as they began to build more and more stores. In 2006, they won the National Restaurant Association's Good Neighbor Award for Todd's projects in giving back to the community and his philanthropy, and in 2007, Raising Cane's received Best Place to Work recognition in Chain Leader magazine. Business was booming, and Todd couldn't be any happier with the business, his staff, or the slogan that honored one of his favorite musicians. However, then disaster struck. After years of success and years using the slogan, in 2013, Raising Cane's was sued by 56 Hope Road Music, a company that was founded by Bob Marley's heirs that controls the rights of the late reggae star's photographs, music, and sayings. Todd had been successfully able to get One Love trademarked for Raising Cane's to use in certain circumstances, whilst 56 Hope Road Music got control of it in other circumstances due to their own trademark. And thus, for many years, there had been no issue. And then one day, Todd got sued by 56 Hope Road Music. This was doubly troubling for Todd. Not only was his business slogan at risk, which they used in loads of their ads, but he was being sued over this. The lawsuit started in December of 2013, and Todd met constantly with Bob Marley's daughter for the better part of 5 months as they tried to reach some sort of agreement. Finally, in May of 2014, they were able to reach a settlement that they both found mutually beneficial and allowed both of them to continue to use the phrase "One Love." At the conclusion of the lawsuit, Todd was relieved to be able to put the legal troubles behind him and go back to expanding his restaurant. Unfortunately, he soon faced a much bigger threat to his business. With Raising Cane's ongoing success, Todd began to expand more and more all over the country. He continued to build stores all through Louisiana and the rest of the South, and expanded up to the Midwest as well, and eventually went out to Southern California. Raising Cane's eventually had the opportunity to expand to the Middle East. But before that happened, Todd took time personally to change the recipe to make sure that all the products were up to standard for Islamic dietary restrictions, also known as halal. After tweaking the recipe to just make sure it was edible for everyone, the first Raising Cane's opened in Kuwait, with soon more expanding all over the Middle East. For years, the business continued to do well. It was now 2020 and Raising Cane's seemed in a position to keep growing to the top. And then the event that devastated the restaurant industry as a whole happened. COVID-19 spread across the world, closing restaurant after restaurant down. Raising Cane's was somewhat lucky because they had drive-thrus which flourished during the pandemic, but they were still losing money. Sales were down 30%, and their whole business model involved making small margins on large volumes. Todd's philosophy had always been to put his employees first and was extremely reluctant to start closing down stores and forcing his employees to go out into the poor job market during the brunt of the pandemic. He focused all his attention on making sure his employees stayed employed and trying to keep open as many stores as he could. Raising Cane's changed their marketing to let customers know that restaurants were still able to serve food, firstly with their drive-thrus and then later with enhanced safety measures. Todd took the pandemic very seriously, and due to all of his precautions, Raising Cane's was eventually rated the #1 fast casual dining restaurant for COVID-19 response and commitment to safety, and somehow they managed to make it through without needing the layoffs and closures like many other businesses. So, to return to the original question of how Raising Cane's has achieved success against all the odds, it seems clear that part of the reason has been Todd's commitment to his employees and customers and treating everyone fairly. Plus, despite many suggestions to change or add menu items, Todd has always kept the same menu and same recipe, building a reputation for quality and consistency. Right from the start, Todd had a simple but clear vision of a restaurant that served high-quality chicken fingers in a fun, relaxed atmosphere. And as Raising Cane's expansion continues, it's clear he's most definitely succeeded.
Thanks for watching, and until next one.